Mr. Coleman, we were talking about the practice of law and about some of the differences between a rural practice and a bigger city practice. And I know in the course of your career you've worked just in a rural practice, but you've also worked with lawyers in multiple states, multiple places. Anything that stands out in your mind as far as those types of cases, or the relationship or the difference between rural practice and bigger city practice?
I really don't think so, because I think it depends on, when you talk about, quote, rural practice, what kind of practice you're talking about. I think our practice in this firm is about the same, except the personnel are less and offices are smaller than a big city practice would be. Because we can do some country things. I had an occasion one time, represented this man who came to Greeneville, and he started a business and from scratch, and I represented him from the beginning. He's a very nice guy and a very clever engineer too, by the way. Bill Rawls, do you remember him?
No.
Anyway, after going through all sorts of difficulties, he was sued for patent infringement. He had labor problems. He had this. He had this. Finally, the business was rolling, and he was making a lot of money. And Combustion Engineering wanted to acquire the business, and so he consulted with the stockholders, and they all agreed it was a good deal and sell out. And so I worked for, I guess, 2 or 3 months on the papers with a New York law firm that represented Combustion Engineering. And then Bill Rawls and his wife and I went up there for the closing to this huge law firm. And we got there the night before, and we went through a dry run. You know, we had an open line to the Secretary of the State of Tennessee, an open line to the Secretary of State, the State of Delaware, an open line to, I don't know what, went on and on. And there was a table, and it was stacked with papers that were involved in the closing. So we worked, Bill Rawls, they went out on the town that night, but I worked with those lawyers until, I guess it was 2 or 3 o'clock that morning. And I was so tired, I said, I'm not going to take my suitcase to the hotel. I'm just going to get me a clean set of underwear, put it in my briefcase, plus the stock certificates, which were all endorsed, which were negotiable at that point, and very valuable. The whole deal was in my briefcase. And I went to the hotel and got up the next morning. And so we sat down at the table. As I said, we had an open line to the Secretaries of State. Must have been 10 or 12 people around, these portraits of these old partners looking down at us and everything. Finally, going down the agenda, said, Counsel for Tennessee Electro Minerals will deliver stock certificates for Counsel for Combustion Engineering. With that, I zipped open my briefcase, I popped my underwear. I guess they must have thought pigs in the parlor. But that's about the extent of my contact with big city law firms.
Well, we've talked a little bit about your family, and have heard some stories that involved your family, from being inspiration on one story on your singing. But tell us about your children and your grandchildren.
Well, I have 2 daughters. Nash is 58, and Paige is 55. Nash has 2 sons, Coleman and Hunter. Coleman has 2 children, which would be my grandsons.
Your great-grandsons.
My grandsons, yeah. And one of them is called Nathaniel, and the other one's called Samuel. Paige, my other daughter, had 2 or 3 love affairs, which ended, unfortunately. Thank God they were never married, but they were. So she lives in New Mexico, in Albuquerque. She is both an artist, and I guess that comes from my mother's and Mary Jane's. Mary Jane was very artistic. She did. I mean, she introduced Greeneville, or she introduced the visual arts to Greeneville, Tennessee. They never heard of it until she got here.
And actually was very involved with a film festival, Sinking Creek.
Yes, she started the Sinking Creek Film Festival, and she was the first member of the Tennessee Arts Commission, and was very active in the arts and very well respected. And she traveled a lot, and was just and brought home the most interesting people, artists and so forth. So I guess there's a lot of, except I didn't get any of it. It didn't come from me, but there are a lot of artists and creative people in my family, and I guess it comes from my mother and from Mary Jane.
Well, at this point, based upon your legal career and what you've seen of the practice of law, would you encourage your great-grandchildren to go into the practice of law?
I don't know. From what I see, I don't think so.
And why not?
Well, it seems to me that the practice which seems to be lucrative is these plaintiffs' lawyers, and I certainly don't want to see them advertising in the newspaper, say initial consultation is free. I just despise that. It just makes me sick. It really does. And I think that the practice of law is not the gentlemanly sport that it used to be.
And you mentioned advertising.
I wouldn't discourage them, but
is that one of the big changes you've seen as well? When you started out, was there advertising for lawyers?
No. You'd have been disbarred if you'd advertised when I first started practicing law. But I think the Supreme Court put down an opinion that, I don't know, matter of free speech or something. But it's disgusting when you see lawyers advertising in the phone book, and it really is. It just makes me sick.
From your standpoint and your long legal career, are you glad you did it?
Oh yes, oh yes. I wouldn't miss a day. I have the happiest memory of both of my career as a lawyer and the association I had with lawyers, and I mean, especially in this firm, of course, but all over. I mean, I've got lawyers that I'm very close to in Knoxville and Kingsport, and Johnson City. You mentioned Paul Coleman, I think, is one of them, and Knoxville. And I just, I have absolutely no regrets, and I'm very, very thankful that the Lord, for some reason or other, just led me into this path that ended me in Greeneville and let me practice law here for 50 years.
Those of us that know you and know you well know that one of your great talents in the legal profession has been your ability to litigate cases, but others may not know that your other great talent, at least from my perspective, is your ability to raise young lawyers. And certainly you were my mentor throughout, and have always, even now being retired, have always had an open door for advice. Do you have any advice for new young lawyers as they get into the practice of law?
Not really. I just, if they have a problem, I'll be glad to discuss it with them. But I don't have any general advice as such. Just look before you leap. That's
Well, from the standpoint of our interview, I certainly appreciate it very much. Thank you for telling us about your practice of law.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity and being patient with me. I appreciate it.